Victor Wembanyama is an insanely fun and fascinating player to evaluate. What immediately jumps out to you about him is his frame. I've seen Wembanyama listed as short as 7'2" and as tall as 7'5", but all you need to know is that he is very tall and has a massive wingspan. Now, there have been many players drafted taller than 7'1" in NBA history, but Wembanyama is not just another very tall player drafted. He is so much more than that and is truly a one-of-a-kind prospect that we have never seen before. Let's now delve into some specifics of Wembanyama's game on both ends of the floor and see all the nuanced things he does that makes him so incredible. I will also discuss some of his weaknesses on both ends of the floor because although Wembanyama is a one-of-a-kind player, he definitely still has things he needs to improve. Let me just start off by saying that Wembanyama should not be able to move the way he does at his height. His ability to flip his hips on defense, run in transition, attack closeouts on occasion, and a lot of other tools in his athletic skill set simply do not make sense for a player of his height. It doesn't feel real to watch and is pretty unfathomable. If you just looked at Wembanyama's season stats last season, it doesn't look that impressive if you haven't watched his tape. He averaged 9.4 points, 5.1 rebounds, 1.8 blocks per game, and shot 26% from 3 in 18.4 minutes per game in LNB Pro A play, which is the best league in France. Despite these statistics, Wembanyama is extremely impressive, and barring any major changes, should be the number 1 overall pick next year. Context really matters here, and his tape is the most important thing that factors into his evaluation. He played for LDLC AVSEL last season, which is a team in the LNB Pro A, the most competitive and best league in France. Wembanyama just turned 18 years old in January, so he is still incredibly young and is playing lots of veterans in great competition. Teams in the EuroLeague also have a weird thing where they won't play young players in late game situations, and he got really weird minutes some games. There's also many instances of his teammates simply not hitting him throughout games for whatever reason. All of this to say, this is why tape is the most important thing, and context always needs to be factored into evaluation. With that being said, let's now get into Wembanyama's offensive skill set. Wembanyama has a fairly raw offensive skill set that won't translate to the NBA as well as his defense, but there's certainly a lot to work with, and his skill set is not normal for someone his height. As you would guess, Wembanyama does use his height to his advantage and has times where he simply is just taller than his defender and gets shots around the rim that way. He blends this with a very solid touch around the basket that helps him get easy points around the basket when he wants to. He is also very good at getting positioning in the low post and mid post, which allows for an easier entry pass to be thrown to him so he can go to work. Wembanyama can do some wild stuff in the mid-range occasionally, and he has shown flashes of a decent mid-post game where he can sprinkle in fadeaways, step-backs, and face-ups. To talk about his shooting, obviously the percentage is not great at 26% in his LNB Pro A games and 30% in his EuroLeague games, but there are indicators that his shooting will be able to develop and that he can be a very positive floor spacer in the NBA. The shooting touch is there for him and his shot is very smooth. There's no hitch and it's all in one motion, and I really don't have any problems with the form. His ability to shoot and hit movement threes is mind-boggling, and everything about his shooting is very fluid, especially compared to many other centers. These indicators make me believe that Wembanyama will be able to develop a solid three-point shot in the NBA. My hope for him is that the shot continues to develop and he can shoot at around a 33% clip or above in the league. This would be ideal for him as a very tall floor spacer. Let's now discuss his pick and roll capabilities. Wembanyama is extremely inconsistent when it comes to his screen setting. Some days he'll feel like using his body to set screens and make contact with his man, and some days he will feel like setting incredibly weak screens and do that the entire game. Luckily, this is a fairly easy thing to fix, and I don't see this being a big problem for him in the future. Apart from the screen setting, which needs to be improved, all the indicators are there that he will have a nuanced pick and roll game in the future. Wembanyama is best as a roller, but he is definitely able to pop and is able to be effective slipping as well, although there have been limited examples of that. His rolling is the most easily translatable to the NBA due to his frame, movement ability, and timing that allows him to be able to catch lobs or receive a pass in the post. Wembanyama's pick and pop game is there and it looks fluid, but his shooting needs to become more effective for NBA defenses to take his popping more seriously. His slipping is also pretty effective when used, but will become more effective once he is able to set better screens, so his defender is more glued to him because of the advantages his screens could create. One other thing that I've seen some people discuss is Wembanyama's passing ability. I've seen some people really overrate him on this end and compare his passing to the likes of Nikola Jokic, which is downright ridiculous and makes no sense to me. This is not a means of saying he's a bad passer, but people should not get ahead of themselves. There are some indicators of him being a pretty solid passer, but he is nowhere near the level of Nikola Jokic. His processing speed is pretty good, and he's routinely making swing passes to keep the offense moving and doing it in a timely manner, which is a good indicator. He usually makes the right reads, and there's been a few times where he's had downright great reads. These moments are not super common, and he is not seen as someone setting up his teammates much, but his processing speed is good, and he usually makes the right read. He sometimes overthrows passes, but this is not a big concern. I believe his passing will continue to develop, but it's not a big part of his game right now. Besides what I've already mentioned, the only other thing that Wembanyama needs to work on the offensive end is him taking bad shots and forcing offense. This happens occasionally, and sometimes it doesn't look terrible, and sometimes it's pretty ugly. He's a pretty capable one-on-one creator, especially for his size, but when he just forces shots, it's just not the best form of offense and doesn't look the best. Wembanyama's defense is where things really get mind-boggling. His defensive game is so nuanced and ridiculous, and he's incredibly effective on this end. His defense is way more easily translatable to the NBA than his offense, and I see him making an impact right away. Let's start with his best attribute, which is his shot blocking and rim protection. To get this out of the way for anyone who is maybe thinking about it, yes, Victor Wembanyama is skinny and does not have much muscle on him, and lots of people say the same things about Wembanyama as they do about Chet Holmgren, and that is that he will get bullied in the paint by people like Giannis, Embiid, and so on. To a degree, this is true. Wembanyama can get back down and push lower into the paint easier than other centers with more weight, but this is honestly not a big concern. He is good at taking contact and absorbing it through his hips rather than his chest, which allows him to not be back down as much and not take as many bumps and wear down as quickly. A prime example of Wembanyama being quote-unquote bullied in the paint is against Kenny Lofton Jr. in the FIBA U19 game versus USA. Sure, there was a time or two when he was scored on due to this, but there's also times where he got back down, and the second Lofton would go up, Wembanyama would still alter the shot or block it by using his timing and length. This is the case with various players in LNB Pro A and EuroLeague competition, and will be the case in the NBA as well. Trust me, him being back down will not be a major issue like some people think, and his one-on-one post defense is nowhere near bad. Wembanyama's defense as a help-side rim protector is truly generational, and it is only going to get better with time. He simply is the defense, the same way that Rudy Gobert is for the Utah Jazz. He seems to be everywhere on the court, and his agility to help and rotate over makes no sense for someone of his size. He can be guarding his man and someone will begin to go up for shot, and he will be able to rotate so quickly and move over to block or alter their shot. His agility on defense and his frame cause him to be a generational rim protector and truly one of a kind on the defensive end. To make things even better, his pick and roll defense is incredibly nuanced and effective. You can't really manipulate him in the pick and roll. He is best in drop, and he uses his length and awareness to make the ball handler uncomfortable, while also being aware of the roller and preventing him from going to the basket or doing anything himself. Wembanyama playing drop is very effective. LDLC AVSEL does not play Wembanyama enough in drop, as it is his best attribute. They actually ran him in switches probably more than they did run him in drop. With a lot of bigs, guards try and get them on a switch and put them on an island, and manipulate their lack of agility and mobility. You can't do this with Wembanyama, at least not the same way you do with other bigs. He is not as effective in switches as in drop, but he is certainly not bad at all, and can cause problems due to his length. Sometimes guards will be able to get past him, but a lot of times they will force a bad shot or pass the ball up. So it is definitely not a mismatch when Wembanyama is on a ball handler. There were also a decent amount of times where we would hedge on a screen and do it effectively. He's very good at stunning at the ball handler and disrupting their comfort handling the ball, and still being able to recover to his man in a timely manner. This pick and roll versatility will serve him well in the NBA because there are not really any ways you can attack him effectively, and his height and ability causes problems everywhere on the defensive end. Ball handlers are often afraid to throw entry passes to the big that Wembanyama is covering due to his length and post positioning, as you will see here. This makes it even harder to generate solid offense when Wembanyama is on the opposition. With all this being said, Wembanyama can sometimes over-rely on his length and sometimes be up way too much on his man when defending an entry pass, or over-help on a drive and be exposed because of this. Along with this, sometimes he will rely on his length when he is beat by a ball handler or big as well. His length is a massive plus, but when he over-relies on it to recover, it can get ugly and result in him getting beat and giving up easy points. In this game you are watching right now, in the last 4 minutes, he gave up about 4 easy buckets due to this over-reliance on length, and it didn't look so good. Luckily, there weren't really other times it was as bad as this game. His length can make up for things sometimes when he overhelps or denies, but sometimes it can be detrimental. This is truly the only glaring weakness he has defensively, which is wild to say. Next season, Victor Wembanyama has decided to play for Metropolitans 92 rather than LDLC AVSEL, so hopefully he is able to get more minutes and his teammates can find him more on offense. Victor Wembanyama is truly a generational prospect who, barring any major injuries, has the potential to be a versatile, defensive game changer and an extremely net positive floor spacer with improving offensive skills. His potential is truly through the roof, and I am so excited to see him develop.